Anyone who has spent any time on a farm knows they're places where stories are made. Whether it's outhouse adventures, milking mishaps, or tractor traumas, ask for stories and you'll get them. That's exactly what Deana Driver has done. She grew up on a farm herself and still remembers things that happened to her over 50 years ago. So she put out a call for other people's stories and has turned those submissions into a book called Fun on the Farm, True Tales of Farm Life. Deana compiled and edited the book and joins me now in studio. Hi there.
Hi there.
All right. I got to start by asking you about your memories. You know, it goes back several decades, but what are some of your farm stories that still just are vividly alive in your mind?
One of the ones that is most common that I've heard from others as well and sort of triggered a memory for me was getting stuck in the tractor. That is definitely me. On the front of the book, we have sort of cartoonish images drawn by Regina artist Guy Laird. And there's one of a person with the tractor kind of stuck up to the axle. That would be me.
I'm looking at that picture.
Yes,
right
as a youngster, Dad would say, avoid the slough, avoid that spot. And I just driving along. And then all of a sudden, oops.
You're in the slough.
Yes. And the way our farm was situated north of Edmonton on our family farm, I could see the half mile up to the house. And I would sit there and think, should I go and get help? Should I wait till Dad sees me? Either way, it was not going to work out well for me. So,
well, I can tell from a bit that I've read of your stories. Your dad was not a patient man when mistakes were made.
No, not really. No, 5 kids and Ukrainian temper, I would say, I guess. Let's go with that. And so, he was a yeller for sure.
Oh, right.
But he loved us dearly. And, when you have children working on the farm, things are going to go wrong. So that was one of the things. And then just antics in general. My brother and I were playing tag one day, and for some reason we decided that we should play around the slough. And as I was compiling this book, I phoned my brother, who still has the family farm, and I asked him about it. And sadly, he reminded me that it wasn't just a slough, it was where the sewer let out.
Oh, no.
And I fell into this thing. So, yeah, that will be a memory that you keep with you for your entire life, for sure.
I bet you the smells come alive even.
Yes, I had blocked that for 50-some years. Thank you, Alan, for bringing that up again. So, yeah.
Okay, so you've got stories of your own, but you got some really great stories that were sent into you once you put the call out as well.
Yes, I was really pleased. The idea for the book came from my late husband, Al, and we were working on a book called Cream Money in 2014, and it's stories about the old days of selling cream on the farm. And one day Al said to me, you know what, we should do a book. It should be called Funny Farm, and it should be funny things that happen on the farm. And being the goofball that he was, I thought, well, that's kind of a good idea, and he had quite a sense of humor. We started talking to people about it and kind of putting feelers out there, like, what do you think? Funny things that happen on the farm? And I immediately knew of a couple of stories that I could write. And then people said, Funny Farm, inappropriate title. Let's not do that.
Okay,
anybody who had any medical or hospital background said, yeah, okay. So Fun on the Farm it was. And unfortunately, Al took sick last year, and he passed away before this became a book. So the book is dedicated to him, and it's actually put out in his honor. He was a fun-loving man, loved to tease, loved to joke, and so my family and I have dedicated the book in his honor.
I've got to think that as you were putting this book together and thinking about Al, because like you said, it was his idea, he was a funny guy, there had to have been, it's a funny book full of funny stories, and yet you're going through what had to have been a personal, grief process. How did you manage those two dramatic emotional contrasts?
I'm not sure. I just did it. I guess I'm a professional. I'm a professional writer. I've been writing my whole life. I worked for different magazines and the Leader Post for a while. And so the written word is a passion of mine. So I managed to somehow disassociate some of that stuff. But the book was supposed to come out in 2015. In the fall of 2015, Al took sick in August. And so that delayed things for me. People said to me at the beginning of 2016 even, you probably aren't finding things very funny. And I thought, true, but on the other hand, there's been lots of laughter and lots of joy. I am not a person to wallow very much, I guess. I am surrounded by people who love me and who love our family, and so I celebrate that. I'm a Christian woman. It's one of the things that Al absolutely would have wanted. So I worked through that, and some of these stories brought me great joy. I mean, there's a hilarious little story in there called Moose Hunting, and it cracks me up because it's about a fellow who walked out to the yard to milk the cows, and he was going to go moose hunting that day. And when he got out there, a moose wandered into the farmyard. Well, that made it pretty darn easy to catch the moose that day. So things like that, I find humor in those, and you have to find humor in everyday life.
And I'm guessing because Al was such a funny guy himself, that in a way, doing this book brought his spirit alive for you as well.
For sure. I could see him cracking up and being a smart aleck, responding to a lot of these little stories and little tidbits. And a lot of the writers are... I would say celebrated award-winning Saskatchewan writers. That also has been a surprise to me, that people have really glommed onto this idea and said, you know what, I want to write some pieces. A number of them have 2 or 3 pieces in there. So that's really exciting.
What do you think resonates about this idea of fun on the farm? Why did you get so many submissions?
I think that people are looking for humor, looking for laughter, looking for joy. And also, people really want to celebrate some of the great things about living on the prairies. It's been so popular, it's only a couple weeks old, that I'm already working on Fun on the Farm 2. And I think people from all prairie provinces are going to be submitting, and people can submit at any time. DriverWorks.ca, please do. Mm-hmm.
And then you'll make your decision. How tough is it to go through all those submissions and say, you get to be in it, you don't get to be in it?
Well, that's editor's prerogative, I guess. That's when I put on my editor's hat and say, you have to make a decision. That also is Al coming to the forefront, because he worked at the Regina Leader-Post for many years, and he would say to me, as a writer who was a freelancer, he would say, Deana, you have to stop. There's sometimes you have a deadline, and he would have a deadline every night because the paper was a daily paper.
Absolutely.
When he was there, he had to do the daily paper. And so that was helpful. You have to make a decision, and you have to stick with it, and you have to move on.
What kind of reaction have you had from people who have read the book?
It's really fun to watch people who are city people. That's one of the reasons as well that I wanted to do Cream Money and this book, Fun on the Farm, is growing up in rural Western Canada, people who grew up in the city, including my own 3 children, have no clue about the experiences that we had. I was feeding pigs at age 10 or age 8 and driving the tractor at age 10 and what that entailed. So I watched a friend of mine pick up the book. When we were having supper one night, I'd handed her a book and said, here you go, here's a nice gift. And she opened up to a poem called Thanksgiving, and it talks about how all of a sudden they had turkey after turkey after turkey, but they were all live turkeys. And so they didn't know what to do with them. So the punchline I won't tell you the punchline of the poem, but all of a sudden she burst out laughing, and it made me feel like, yes, that was it. That's exactly what I was going for.
Okay. Well, Deana, thanks for coming to share your story with me today as well.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful to be here.
Deana Driver compiled and edited Fun on the Farm, True Tales of Farm Life.